Assalamualaikum, my name is Nur Alia Syafiqah binti Zamri. So I will start the presentation with the types of election. Election in Malaysia, there are two levels exist, which are federal and state level. At federal election are held for seats in the Dewan Rakyat, the House of Parliament. At the state election are held for seats in the various state legislative assemblies. At federal level elections, the voters get involved to choose the 222 members of Malaysia's bicameral House of Representatives. Members are chosen using the first past the post method from single member constituencies. The federal government is established by the party that holds a majority in the House of Representatives, held once in 5 years. The Prime Minister could request that the Yang di-Pertuan Agong to dissolve the Parliament. State level elections are held to choose representatives for the State Legislative Assembly. There could be as many as 71 electorates in Sarawak and 15 in Perlis. They are having differing numbers of legislators in different states. State election can be held at any time. However, they are typically conducted concurrently with legislative election. This is due to the fact that state assemblies are governed by the governor or ruler of the relevant state, acting on the council of the state chief minister. The election process starts with the nomination process. The nominee must complete the necessary forms and make a financial deposit. For a parliamentary seat, the deposit is 10,000, while for a state assembly seat, it is 5,000, except in cases where the candidates lose and receive less than 1/8 of the vote. The deposit is used to cover election law violation and is returned following election day. The next stage is campaign, which begins on the nomination day until the election day as allowed by law. The campaign is ended at 12 a.m. on the election day. Usually, the length of campaign is 10 days. Mode of conduct for the campaign: distribution of the brochure, hanging poster, and house-to-house campaign. Parties are allowed to use electronic media to represent manifesto. For parliamentary elections, a candidate can spend RM200,000 for campaign, while for state level election is RM100,000. Election day refer to the voters cast their votes. Officially starts at 12 a.m. and end when the results are announced. Time for voting from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Next is counting of votes. The election officials count the ballots once the voting is finished. It is ensured that the total number of ballots and the number of votes cast match up during the counting process. Official tallying of the ballot. The boxes are brought to another counting center for a second count after the count at the voting center is done. It is valid if all candidates agree to the count. Otherwise, an immediate recount is performed at the counting center. The outcome of the election is announced on radio and television stations. Requirement election for candidate. Any Malaysian citizen aged 21 years old and above who is not disqualified may register as a candidate. He or she accomplishes this by submitting the required forms and making a financial deposit. Candidates who are affiliated with a political party must display the party's logo. For a parliamentary seat, the deposit is RM10,000, while for a state assembly seat, it is RM5,000.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Aisha, and for the voters, requirement of voters is any person who is at least 21 years old has the right to register as a voter during the time frame, even though the election commission goal is to do this once a year. It typically happen if the election commission determines that more are necessary, they can be convened. The numerous steps involved in conducting a registration exercise are outlined in the election registration, which is registration of elector. regulation of 1971. So for the requirement of voters is according to Article 119, every citizen who has reached the age of 21 on the qualifying date. And next is every citizen who is resident of a constituency on such qualifying date, or who is an absent voter if not so resident, is entitled to vote in that constituency in any election to the House of Representatives or the Legislative Assembly, unless he is disqualified under Clause 3 or under any law relating to offences committed in connection with elections. However, no person shall vote in more than one constituency in the same election. For the person who are ineligible to vote in any election to the House of Representatives or the Legislative Assembly, if he or she is detained as a person of unsound mind on the qualifying date or is serving an imprisonment sentence. If not, then she or he, having been convicted of any offences in any part of the Commonwealth and sentenced to death or imprisonment for the term in exceeding 12 months prior to the qualifying date, he remains liable to suffer any punishment for the offence on the qualifying date. In this article, qualifying date refers to the date on which the electoral rolls are prepared or revised. And absent voter refers to any citizen who is registered as an absent voter in relation to any constituency under provisions of any election law. The legal provision of election, according to the Article 114, we shall be conduct election to the House of Representatives and the legislative assemblies of the states, as well as prepare and revise electoral rolls for such elections subject to the provision of federal law. Furthermore, subject to the paragraph 2, the Election Commission shall, as necessary, review the division of the federation and the states into constituencies and recommend such changes as they may deem necessary in order to adhere to the requirement embedded in the 13th schedule. And the revaluation of electorates for the subject of elections to the legislative assemblies shall be undertaken concurrently with the evaluation of constituency for elections to the legislative assemblies. Legal provision of procedures and requirements. Firstly, Article 114, the YDPA nominate the chairman and the deputy chairman and the other 3 members of Election Commission following consultation with the Conference of Rulers. Secondly is the significance of establishing an election commission that has the public trust when choosing members by YDPA. The third one is according with the same Article 114, the member of the Election Commission shall choose to hold office on reaching the age of 65 or if the member found ineligible under Clause 4. Lastly, if the member want to resign the office, they have to send the handwritten letter by she or he to YDPA.
For scholar opinion, we have 3. First is type of election, second is procedure and requirements, third is the voters and candidates. Let's get into it one by one. Regarding the type of election, most of the scholars in Malaysia state that Malaysia is a constitutional monarchy that use a Westminster style of parliamentary that is inherited from the British. The plural majority electoral system grants the parliament seats to those candidates who simply win the most vote or the most seat in their constituencies. The advantage, so-called first past the post system, is lie in its simplicity and its tendency to support the link between the constituencies and the representative in the parliament. Last, this kind of system help in bridging diverse interests of different societal groups that tend to have a broad-based membership. Proceed to the procedures. To let you guys know, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong appoints 7-member election commission to help oversee the elections. Basically, the election in Malaysia are conducted by them in accordance of existing law and regulation. The commission also conducts election at least generally smooth and satisfactory. In order to complete the election process, candidates must undergo few process to complete the whole election. Jump to the requirements. Only registered voters may vote in the election. Any Malaysian citizen who age 21 years old already registered under election commission can vote in the election. The registered voters may cast their ballot for their chosen candidate in designated voting centres. The counting is monitored and done manually to ensure that the total ballots are the same as the total numbers of voters cast. We are in the last part of the scholar opinion. We started with voters. In 2018, Malaysian citizens aged 18 years old and above can be registered as voters according to Election Commission. The constitutional amendments allowing 18 years old to vote in upcoming elections. On the bright side, we can see that young people play an important role in ensuring the nation's well-being and security. Also, according to Election Commission in 2018, young voters will be the majority in Malaysia. Next is candidate. Any Malaysian citizen may register as candidate as long as they are not disqualified. They need to place a certain amount of money as deposit to contest their seat both in parliament and state level. The deposit is used to pay for any kind of infringement of election laws. An electoral list can be registered by the political party or can be constitute a group of independent candidates.
So we move to our point of view of type of election. In our opinion, Malaysia is fortunate to have a parliamentary democratic system that give the people the ability to choose the representative who will carry out the work of managing the country. Election held in Malaysia are an important component in creating democracy in Malaysia, and it is the place where the people have the ability to vote in order to choose their elected leaders. So election also play a role in confirming those who hold power through voting in free and democratic election, and in this election the people can be educated to use democracy in the right way. So the federal constitution has already provided guarantees for the basic right and freedom of the people and society justice for all races in the country, and the leader who have been elected and granted the trust must also do their hardest to serve the people and the nation. So having a harmonious nation can ensure that development can occur and a country make the desired progress. And as a Malaysian, it is important for every citizen to participate and perform responsibility in this democratic process as a voter. We move to the procedure and requirement. So in our opinion, the young generation today is more and more interested in entering entering the political world in Malaysia due to the openness of the requirements to be election candidate. So therefore, the young political leader now have the possibility to join for election in Malaysia, and the space given has seen more young people who are active in being good leader and making good decision about the future of the country. And in fact, young individuals are more prepared to fulfill their duties as the nation future leaders the earlier if they are given the opportunity to participate in this process. Although some people still have doubt about young people abilities, providing them with opportunities like this is the greatest way to develop future leaders. And we believe that candidates who wish to represent the people should have high moral characteristics, the necessary expertise, and at the very least, experience in administration and public relations. And one of the reasons that can be used as a starting point of for change in the requirement to stand for election is that the candidate who want to be selected to run also need to consist of those who do not have a criminal record or exposed to any case or scandal that is still under investigation by the authorities. And this lesson is based on a few political issues that have been discussed in Malaysia recently. And for the last point of view is about voters and candidates. There were several issues exist after the recent news that Malaysian citizen voting age will be lowered from 21 to 18 years old. There are some who support and those who disagree with the ideas that voting right begin at the end of 18. However, in our opinion, this change will enable Malaysia to transform its current outdated political system, and young people now must show their ability to build new and fresher political atmosphere. It is also a step forward to ensure that the number that determine the country leaders are properly represented by all age. In addition, the maturity of a person may be seen in their action and manners rather than how old they are. And lowering the voting and contesting age are also provide young people more time to enter and grow the political world and in current leadership. And we are sure that the combination of young thinkers and senior citizens experience will absolutely help Malaysia move in a better way.
There are two types of example, which for the first one is about type of election and for the second one is about voters and candidates. Basis of the type of election is all about the 1988 judicial crisis, or we call as the 1980 Malaysian constitutional crisis. In the 1987 election, the crisis started when it involved the election of the president of UMNO, United Malaya National Organization, who is the dominant political party of the Barisan Nasional Malaysia. Dr. Mahathir, who is the Prime Minister of Malaysia, was nominated as a president. It is because he won by a narrow margin of 43 voters. At that time, Dr. Mahathir was supported by more than 100 nominations from UMNO branches, but his challenger Tengku Razak, who is one of UMNO's 3 vice presidents, was also nominated by little more than 20 UMNO division. But Dr. Mahathir had the courage to initiate a challenge despite having so few nominations. So to make it short, Dr. Mahathir was on a team B and supported by Ghaffar, while Tengku Razak and Datuk Musa was on team B. At the end, everyone was really shocked after the secret ballot were counted. The result was Dr. Mahathir winning the situation, but this result surprised many who had anticipated the incumbent to win by a large number of nominations he had received from the party's branches. After the election, UMNO was charged to court as accusing Dr. Mahathir's victory was declared invalid. The result of the trial at that time, when UMNO declared it as an invalid organization and we can ban it, thus ended the UMNO party, which reached the age of 41 years. On 4th February 1988, the Kuala Lumpur High Court declared UMNO, which was established on 11 May 1946 as an organization which is invalid. This decision was made by Judge Datuk Harun Hashim. The second example of the cases law of voters and candidates is about Anwar Ibrahim qualified for the full pardon from YDPA. Anwar Ibrahim, which is the jail former Deputy Prime Minister, was barred from running for office under Malaysian law in general. But in May, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison on charges of sodomizing his former family driver and abusing his power. He was also convicted in 2003 of attempting to bribe voters during a race for election to become Mahathir Mohamad Deputy Prime Minister in 1998. He has not been pardoned by Mahathir and will be disqualified if he released soon. But however, during general election 14, Mahathir was desperately negotiating with other parties, including PKR, in order to form a majority and try to unseat the government of Datuk Sri Najib bin Abdul Razak. So he helps Anwar Ibrahim to get a pardon from YDPA. Since the full royal pardon Anwar had received from YDPA after 7 days after Pakatan Harapan conquered the federal government after general election 14, from that moment he can set to contest the partisan parliamentary. It shows that he has a right as a candidate during 2018. Parti Keadilan Rakyat, or we call as PKR, which Anwar's party hold 48 seats out of 113 seats won by the Pakatan Harapan Alliance. Another perspective is about this case. It shows the power of Malaysian citizens standing on the principle of democracy and freedom, as we demand of changing the way of government govern the country as there is a new dawn.